G'day folks, Jason Costigan here and welcome to Bushbeat in the aftermath of State of Origin number 1. And as per usual, we're here to showcase country rugby league far and wide. And this week coming out of Kiama on the south coast of New South Wales as we continue to take our show on the road. Coming up, we'll be talking local rugby league in a stack of places from Dalby to Darwin and Foster to Fremantle. As I keep saying, covering more ground than Burke and Wills. And my very special guest, the operations manager of Group 7 Rugby League here on the South Coast, Ashton Sims, who will bring back some memories for sure for a lot of you people, especially given his history in both the NRL and Super League. For now, a quick break. When we come back, we'll check out what's happening across New South Wales and the ACT, including Magic Round here on the South Coast this coming weekend. In fact, just up the road at Bomaderry. Stay with us. You're listening to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Let's now go through the various competitions across New South Wales and the ACT, many of which took a hammering last weekend because of those deadly floods on the mid-north coast. And our thoughts and prayers, of course, with everybody impacted in that part of the world. Now, starting with Newcastle and the Denton Cup, last weekend, just 3 matches played in that competition because of the weather. Cessnock 18, Northern Hawks 10, Wyong 30, Souths 12, and Maitland 18, Central 22. To the latter, the Goannas leading the way on 10 points, followed by 3 teams on 8 points, Souths, West and Maitland, then 3 teams on 6 points, Lakes United, Wyong and Curry Curry, Macquarie in the entrance on 4, Central on 2, and the Northern Hawks on 0. Now, for this Saturday, we've got the first of the Coalfields derbies for the season with Curry at Cessnock. Elsewhere, Lakes United at home to Souths. Northern Hawks off to the entrance. The Rosellas play the Butcher Boys at Harker Oval. And Wyong make the trip to Maitland. All those games starting at 3 o'clock. To the Northern Rivers, and only 3 matches went ahead last weekend because of the weather. Evans Head Bombers won 24-20 at Ballina. Ballamble won 20 points to 12 against Lower Clarence at Yamba. And Tweed Heads playing at home beat Kyogle 30 points to 26. And as for the latter, Coogin Hornets and Ballamble Jets are first and second respectively. Both teams undefeated on 10 points. Then the Bombers from Evans Head on 8, followed by Kyogle on 6. And after that, Ballina, Tweed Coast and Mullumbimby on 4. Then on 2 points, Marist Brothers, Tweed Heads, Murwillumbah and Lower Clarence. And on 0, Casino, Northern United and Byron Bay. For this Sunday, round 7, we've got Marist Brothers at home to Ballamble, Ballina off to Murwillumbah, Coogin host Tweed Heads, Casino travel to Kyogle, Byron Bay welcome Tweed Coast, Evans Head entertain Mullumbimby, and at Yamba, it's the game between Lower Clarence and Northern United. Those games across the Northern Rivers starting at 2:45. To Group 2 last weekend, an absolute washout, of course. The latter right now, we've got Sawtell, Woolgoolga and Nambucca all on 7 points, South Grafton on 5, Maxville 4, Coffs Comets on 3 and the Grafton Ghosts on 1. This Sunday in round 6, Coffs v Nambucca, South Grafton off to Maxville and Woolgoolga. The Seahorses, they make the trip to Sawtell, all those matches to kick off at 2:40. To Group 3, again last weekend, a complete washout for obvious reasons, and the latter, it reads this way, Port Macquarie and Macleay Valley on 6, Ulbar and Wingham on 4, then 4 teams on 0. Warhope, Port City, Taree City and Foster Tuncurry. And looking ahead to round 6 this Saturday, Foster Tuncurry off to Wingham, Warhope at home to Taree City. Those games starting at 2:45 and 3 o'clock respectively. And then on Sunday, Port City host Ulbar, and at Smithtown it's Macleay Valley and the Port Macquarie Sharks. Those games starting at 2:45 and 3 o'clock respectively. Up the range we go to Group 4, and last weekend, round 5, and a cracking game at Werris Creek where the Magpies pipped North Tamworth 25-24 in a thriller. In the other games, Dungowan won 38-32 at Katingal, Gunnedah 66-6 winners over visiting Wee Waa, and at Moree, the Boars 46-12 victors against Boggabri. The Group 4 ladder, Gunnedah and Werris Creek on 9 points, North Tamworth, the Bears on 8, Moree Boars 6, Boggabri 5, Dungowan and Cootie both on 2, Wee Waa on 0. This Saturday in round 6, on Saturday we've got North Tamworth Bears at home to Moree Boars, and Gunnedah off to Boggabri. And on Sunday, Dungowan off to Wee Waa and Werris Creek at home to Cootie. All those games to kick off at 3 o'clock. To the Central Coast, and last Sunday's action called off again because of the weather, so the ladder stays the same. Just recapping that, Erina undefeated on 8 points, Toukley and Wyong both on 6, Kincumber, the Entrance and Berkeley Vale on 4, Arimba, Woy Woy and Terrigal on 2. Now for this Sunday, we've got Wyong off to Toukley, Arimba at home to Erina, Kincumber to play Woy Woy at McKillop Oval and Berkeley Vale at Terrigal, all those games starting at 3:05. To the Illawarra, and the Harrigan Cup continues this weekend after the washout last weekend, and a major boost for the Thirroul Butchers with two-time premiership winner Wayne Bremner coming out of retirement. Last time he played in the top grade for the Butchers in the 2023 Grand Final. That's very good news indeed for Thirroul. And off the field, some excellent news as well with Thomas Gibson Park set for a major upgrade. Now, coming up on Saturday, Brem's Butchers at home to De La Salle. In the other games, Western Suburbs play Collies at Mount Kembla Park. And at Dapto Showground, it's the Canaries and the Cougars. All 3 games to start at 3 o'clock. And recapping the ladder, heading into round 6, Collies on top on 8 points. Western Suburbs 6, then De La Salle and Thirroul on 4, Dapto 2, and Corrimal yet to get off the mark. In the MacArthur, an absolute mess with the Narellan Jets. They've been in the news this week for all the wrong reasons, and facing the prospect of getting kicked out of the competition amid allegations that important documents relating to finances have been destroyed. According to reports, the winless Jets are $60,000 in the red. There are question marks over player welfare, and once Proud Life members have been walking out on the club. And in first grade, they haven't won a game in almost 12 months. Now, the way it's looking, the Jets could even lose their home base, paving the way for new tenants in the form of the Southwest Goannas. Now, as for the on-field action, last weekend in round 7, just 2 matches played. Narellan got spanked 50 points to 0 at Oakdale, and Camden beat the Goannas 42-34 at Kirkham Park. To the table right now, undefeated Camden on 14 points, followed by Oakdale Workers on 10, then the Oaks, Picton, Collegians, Mittagong all on 8 points, Thirlmere, Roos and the Goannas on 6, East Campbelltown 4, and Narellan still with that big fat 0 and with more issues than 60 minutes. Now, coming up on Sunday, we've got the Oaks v Picton, East Campbelltown welcome the Goannas, Camden travel to Thirlmere, Oakdale Workers at home to Mittagong, and if the game actually goes ahead, Narellan host Collegians. All those matches to commence at 3 o'clock. Back on the coast, here in Group 7, they have Magic Round coming up on Saturday, just up the road from us, in fact, at Bomaderry. And later in this show, we'll catch up with the league's operations manager, Ashton Sims, whom you would remember from his playing days with the Dragons and Cowboys and Broncos, plus Warrington and Super League, and the ill-fated Toronto Wolfpack, and also for his beloved Fiji on the world stage. That's Ashton Sims coming up soon. Now, last weekend, no footy because of the washout. The table right now, Stingrays, Kiama, Shellharbour, Jamboree and Albion Park Oak Flats in that order, all on 8 points. Gerringong on 6, and then Milton Ulladulla, Nowra Bomaderry and Berry Shoalhaven Heads all on 4. So just 2 wins separating the top teams from the bottom teams in Group 7. This Saturday, as mentioned, all roads lead to Bomber and Artie Smith for a Magic Round. From 12 o'clock, we've got Berry Shoalhaven Heads versus Milton Ulladulla. From 1:45, it's Jamboree v Albion Park Oak Flats. From 3:30, Nowra Bomaderry Jets v Shellharbour Sharks. And last but not least, under lights from 5:15, it's Stingrays v Gerringong. Further south along the coast down towards the Victorian border in Group 16, last weekend just the 2 first-grade matches because of the wet weather, and Pambula Bulldogs 34, Bombala 16, and Eden 24, Maria 10. The Group 16 ladder, the Bulldogs on top on 10, Tathra 8, both those teams undefeated, by the way. Also on 8 points, we've got Eden. Next is Narooma on 5, followed by Cooma, Bega and Maria on 4, Bombala 3 and Batemans Bay on 2. Now for this Saturday, the Bulldogs head up to Batemans Bay as Bombala come down the coast to tackle Tathra. On Sunday, it's Maria hosting Narooma as Bega head up the mountain to play Cooma. All those games starting at 3 o'clock. To the Riverina in Group 9. Big drama last weekend with Junee causing a boil-over by beating the defending champions, the young Cherry Pickers, 30 points to 28 in a game marred by controversy. In case you missed it, Junee's Eli Crozier, he's off to the judiciary. In fact, as we speak, seeking a downgrade after his so-called cannonball tackle on Pickers forward Jake Hogan. It left Hogan with ligament damage and bad bruising. He's expected to be sidelined now for 3 weeks. Incredibly, Crozier was not sent to the sin bin. He didn't even go on report. And needless to say, Pickers officials are not impressed. And we'll be sweating on the outcome of that judiciary hearing in the coming hours, so stay tuned for more via our forthcoming news bulletins. To make matters worse for the Pickers, Tom DeMeo, former Cronulla Sharks lower grader, he now has a broken hand, so the medics have been pretty busy in the Cherry capital. In the other matches last weekend in Wagga, where referee Scott Muir equalled the record for most first-grade games in Group 9, South City edged out Albury 22-20 at Harris Park. Gundagai beat visiting Cootamundra at 20 points to 12. In a lopsided Wagga derby, Kangaroos wiped out Brothers 66 blot, and Josh McCrone's Temora won 32-22 against Tumut up at Twickenham, with the Dragons continuing to hold the Challenge Cup. Now to the table. Glamour Boys, Kangaroos undefeated on 12, Tumut on 9, then comes Young and Temora and Gundagai all on 8 points to round out the top 5. Next is Albury on 5, then South City and Junee on 4, Cootamundra on 2, and Brothers still in the basement on 0. In other news, an extra marquee player could be on the way to Junee. That's according to incoming co-coach Ben Shea. He'll soon be at Laurie Darley Oval alongside Chase Bernard after their epic success with the Albi Tigers in the south of France. I caught up with Ben early in the week after Albi's drought-breaking victory in Super 13.
Been a big 24 hours here in Albi. Yesterday, first title for the club in 48 years. So, yeah, everyone's very happy. The supporters, the players, the staff, everyone around, everyone deserves it. It was a great win. Carcassonne, they've been, they're a great club, very professional. They knocked us off on the buzzer last year and we kind of returned the favour this year. So it's a great rivalry. They're a great team. Very, very tough match yesterday. So got the win yesterday. We'd lost 3 finals the last 3 years, so the club deserves that one. After that, heading back to Junee in Group 9. The boys there had a great win on the weekend over Young, who are a really tough team. Hopefully we can set ourselves up for a big back end of the season. We've already got one of the boys from France back there, Drayden Sorensen. He played his first game in the weekend, and myself and Chase should head back there over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully, if we're lucky, we might even add another guy from over here to the ranks. We'll see how we go and then set ourselves up for a big finish to the season in Group 9 and hopefully make a bit of an impact to finish off the year there.
Well, you can't say the finals are impossible for Ben Shea's Diesels, but they'll need to keep winning, starting with the game at Albury this Sunday. In other matches this weekend, on Saturday, we've got a mouth-watering top-of-the-table clash in Group 9 at Twickenham, where Tumut Blues play Roos, whilst at Nixon Park, Temora play Young. The locals no doubt revved up after homegrown Origin hero Zach Lomax scored that double for the Blues. And then on Sunday, aside from the game down at Albury, we've got Brothers and Gundagai and Wagga and Cootamundra at home to South City Bulls. And by the way, at Les Boyd Oval, Scott Muir will be the referee and he'll be breaking the record for the most first-grade games in Group 9. Quite fitting because that's where it all started for Scott with the whistle in first grade 31 years ago. Good on him. For the record, all those games do start at 2:35. Now to Group 19 and the New England. Last weekend in Round 7, the Super Spuds. They won at Gyra, 46 points to 30 over Urella. Glen Innes took care of visiting Narwin 34-14. And Tinga at home defeated Moree Boomerangs 40 points to 24. Now the ladder has Glen Innes on top on 12, Tinga on 11, Inverell 10, Gyra 9, Narwin 6, Warrielda and the Boomerangs on 4, Urella 2, and Walker on 0, still listed on the table. This Saturday, the Boomerangs host Narwin. The kickoff time is 2 o'clock in the morning, it says, as I look at the website, but surely that can't be right. Elsewhere, Glen Innes at home to Tinga from 1:15, and from 2 o'clock, we've got Urella at home to Warrielda. And then on Sunday from 1:15, the Super Spuds back at home hosting the Hawks. In Group 20, more drama last weekend, with West Wyalong forfeiting again, this time on the road against Hay Magpies. In the matches that were played, Waratahs 28, DPC 12. Leeton Greenies won 60 points to 12 at Lake Cajalago, and 18 all between Yanko and Yenda. That game played at Yanko. To the ladder, Waratahs leading the way on 12, Yanko 9, Leeton 8, Hay 7, DPC, Yenda and Black and Whites all on 6. TLU Sharks 4 and the Mallee Men on 2. For this Sunday, round 7, Hay Magpies hosting Waratahs, Black and Whites off to Yenda, Yanko at home to old rivals Leeton, and if they've got the numbers, the Mallee Men from West Wyalong are at home to the Sharks, all games starting at 2:30. To Group 21 in the Hunter Valley. Now, last weekend was a washout, and we can't give you the ladder because it seems that nobody could be bothered to update the system. Now, on Saturday at 5:30, we've got Aberdeen hosting Muswellbrook, and then on Sunday, Singleton welcome Denman as Scone host the Colts. Those round 6 fixtures starting at 2 o'clock. To the Peter McDonald Premiership in the Central West. Last weekend, the NRL, of course, returning to Bathurst, and on the local scene, Panthers 16, St Pat's 30, Mudgee 34, Orange Sims 24, Wellington 58, Parks 18, Forbes just sneaking home against Dubbo Sims at Spooner. 19-18 was the score, and Nick Greenelch proving the difference with his field goal. Hawks 42, Lithgow Workies 6, and Macquarie 38, Ningen 28. To the ladder, Dubbo Sims on top on 8 points, then St Pat's, Forbes, Wellington, Mudgee, Orange Sims all on 6, Parks on 4, Hawks, Ningen and Macquarie on 2, and Panthers and Workies on 0. This weekend in round 6, Dubbo Sims hosting Mudgee, Hawks at Ningen, St Pat's at Forbes, Workies at home to Wellington, Orange Sims play Parks at Wade Park. All those games kick off at 2 o'clock, and then at 2:30, it's the Panthers and Macquarie at Carrington Park. To the Woodbridge Cup, last weekend, Cargo defeated visiting Trundle 34-32. The Golden Eagles won 32-24 at Eugowra against Orange United. Condo won 42-22 at Grenfell. Oberon defeated visiting Manildra 22-16. And at Peak Hill, a 30-all draw between the Chooks and Molong. And as for the ladder, Cowra on 12, Manildra and Oberon on 10, Molong 9, Orange United and Eugowra on 8, Canoundra, Trundle and Condo on 6, Cargo 4, Peak Hill 3, Grenfell on 2. And for Saturday, we've got Trundle to welcome Oberon from 3 o'clock, and from 5 o'clock, Orange United play Cargo at Wade Park. And then on Sunday to complete round 7, Grenfell off to Molong, Condo host Cowra and Eugowra at Canoundra. They all start at 2 o'clock. In the Castlereagh Cup, last weekend, Coona won 56-28 at Barradine. Gulgong 26-24 over visiting Cobar. Coolah 46-4 winners on the road against Dunedoo. And 32-all at Canamble between the Bears and Narromine. To the table, Coolah on top on 15, Coona and Gulgong on 13, Cobar 11, Canamble and Narromine on 10, Dunedoo 9, Warren and Barradine both on 7. And this Saturday in round 6, Coolah host Barradine, Gulgong off to Narromine, Dunedoo at Cobar and Canamble at Warren. All games start at 2:30. Now to the ACT and the Canberra Raiders Cup. No footy play there last weekend. And as for the ladder, Blues on 10, West Belconnen 9, Roos 8, Gungahlin and Belconnen United on 6, Woden Valley 5, Goulburn on 4, Tuggeranong and Yass on 0. Now for this Saturday, a big day coming up for Woden Valley with the Rams using their new clubhouse at Phillip for the home game against Blues. Belconnen United off to Yass, Tuggeranong heading up the highway to play Goulburn, and West Belconnen hosting Roos, all games starting at 3 o'clock. Finally to the George Took Shield, last weekend a washout, recapping the ladder, Harden on top on 6, Bungendore 5, Burrawa and Snowy River Bears on 4, Bynalong 3, North Canberra 2, and with the donut we've got Crookwell, Googong and the Stars. This Saturday, Snowy River Bears off to Burrawa, North Canberra visit Crookwell, Stars play Bynalong at Raiders Belconnen, and a grand final rematch. This should be a ripper between the Tigers and the Hawks at Bungendore, all games starting at 2:30. When we come back, you'll hear from Ashton Sims here in Kiama on the south coast of New South Wales. We'll be talking Group 7 Rugby League and a whole lot more right here on Bushbeat. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, and my special guest this week on the program, he had a terrific career as a player. In fact, many moons ago, I remember coming to the south coast of New South Wales to interview him for Sky Television New Zealand. He was a talented kid, one of several in his family. He's grinning just looking at me as I bring this up right now. Ashton Sims, who's involved with Group 7 Rugby League. In fact, he's the operations manager Ashton, welcome to the program. Welcome to Bushbeat.
Thanks very much, Jason. It seems like a very long time ago that we had that interview, but I'm very thankful for not only the belief in you, but also the belief in plenty of coaches and people along the way to give me an opportunity to play rugby league. But now I'm in a very privileged position to focus on the growth, development and sustainability of the South Coast Group 7 Rugby League competition here in the competition I grew up playing in.
Now, just to put some perspective around our previous relationship, if you like, that was a long time ago, and we had the TV camera there on that occasion. That's no right. TV camera today. And we were talking about your career. I think your siblings were only young at that stage. I can't really remember who's in the pecking order, but we did the interview at Mick Cronin Oval because you're a South Coast boy proudly, and you must pinch yourself because you lived the dream to play a professional career or play out a professional career, and now still involved in the game that we all love.
That's exactly right. Exactly what you said. Look, I'm in a privileged position to give back to the competition that gave me so much. That gave me that opportunity to showcase my talents on a rugby league field and put myself out there with the Illawarra Steelers, with the St George Illawarra Dragons, and then being able to play with the Brisbane Broncos, North Queensland Cowboys, over at the Great Warrington Wolves, and then finish up at Toronto Wolfpack. And probably one of my crown jewels is being able to play for Fiji. That's something that I hold dear to my heart. It's something that I'm very proud of my whole career, but not only just my career, my siblings' career. Older sister Rowan and two younger brother Tarek and Corbin. We've all been able to forge out an NRL career, but now, through those connections that we've made, through the connection of rugby league, we've been able to give back and support the next generation coming through.
Now, you mentioned the Toronto Wolfpack. I need to ask you about that because recently on rugbyleagues.com's Bushbeat program, our country league show, and that's exactly what we are, talking country like rugby league, breathing rugby league in the bush, I caught up with Josh McCrone, who you know very well. You're smiling now you're grinning like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah.
And I had to ask him, Ashton, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. What the heck happened there at Toronto? And are you still owed money? Because there's people out there that thought it was a great thing. They still think it was a great thing, and a great shame that the Wolfpack are no more.
Rugby league doesn't owe me a thing. I owe everything to rugby league. So, I'm never in debt to anyone through the rugby league there. Look, I left before a lot of all that happened. I left in 2019, and when obviously the COVID and the closure of travel, international travel in and around the world happened, I was lucky enough to get back to Australia at that time. So, look, David Argyle, he did a fantastic job trying to promote and also deliver and advertise rugby league there in the North American market. And I can tell you right now, I've got an expansionist mindset, but a community heart. So what I want to see, I want rugby league, I want people to feel what I feel when I watch and be a part of rugby league. I want other people from all corners of the globe to feel that. I don't say that as a throwaway line because, look, at the end of the day, I'm the son of a dairy farmer and a Fijian immigrant. We grew up in very, very humble beginnings. I won't say poor, but very humble beginnings. I know what it's like for my dad to slam a can of baked beans on the table on a Monday and say, lad, this is your dinner for the rest of the week. If you want to eat, I'd go somewhere else. I know what it's like to come home from a freezing cold winter's night at Michael Cronin Oval, riding down home to no running water or no hot water in the house. And my mum saying, Ash, I'd ride down the beach and jump in the ocean and wash off because we've got nothing here. Look, rugby league has provided me, my sisters and my two brothers a platform to again showcase our talents on the high stage. And you know what, at the end of the day, I'm internally grateful to rugby league. I'm internally in debt to rugby league itself, and that's why I love giving back. That's why I love going out and seeing kids and our seniors play every weekend because look, I was one of those kids at some stage. I was one of those kids that were bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. All I wanted to do was listen to ABC radio, ABC Grandstand. Here we are, Warren Bolden from North Sydney Oval, the Illawarra Steelers versus the North Sydney Bears. I remember that.
Glory days?
Glory days. I remember that. I remember riding down. I remember, Rod Wishart, as the crow fly, lived less than 1 kilometre away from me.
The mullet.
And I talked to him yesterday. He's one of the great men of rugby league and one of the great men of Gerringong. And that's why, little things like that. I'll never forget the day Rod Wishart tossed a ball over his front fence to me and say, I see you walking up and down Blackwood Street all the time. Here, keep this, throw that little ratty ball away and have this one. That was my emotional attachment. That was one of my many emotional attachment to this game. So, yeah, I do work big hours. Yeah, I do want to see rugby league succeed here in the South Coast, but, I also want to be a good father and a loving husband as well. So that's for me on a personal level, that's the blend, or that's the mix that I've got to work harder at, but I love the game.
I love the passion. I'm sure our listeners listening to Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com, they love the passion as well. I love the line that you're so community focused, but you see the big picture. I'm going to put you on the spot with the Vegas experiment and your history in North America, albeit north of the border in Canada. Do you love what you see with what Volandis is doing with Vegas?
I love what I see. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think it's absolutely fantastic for us to grow as a model, as a business, as a sport. We got to get out of just England, just Australia and the Pacific Islands and a few other nations here. Let's get to North America. Let's reach, these big North American markets in Canada and the USA itself. Let's provide this sport of rugby league to the masses. We see over in North America how much they get onto the NFL. NFL's huge over there, and rugby league is pretty barbaric, pretty gladiatorial, just like the NFL. So we've got the right people in the right roles up the top, but making sure that, like I mentioned before, having that growth mindset, but also having that community focus at heart, ensuring that our grassroots at our, in England, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Papua New Guinea, in the Fiji, in the islands, making sure that we strengthen what we've got already, consolidate what we've got, but also expand to the masses.
Do you also support the inclusion of the Super League component to Vegas now, especially your old club obviously being involved? It was a bit experimental, but so far so good.
If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And I think right now, rugby league's in a really sweet spot to launch ourselves out to the open market. When I say the open market, all corners of the globe. Ensuring that, again, communities and regions across New South Wales, Queensland, and all our regions in, Yorkshire, Lancashire, everywhere in between, that we strengthen those grassroots, but also have the knowledge and the mindset to see the forest from the trees, right? We need to focus on how can we expand, how can we pull out, how can we get people from Asia playing rugby league? How can we get people from North America, everyone from South America, wherever you're from? Africa. We are the game for all. It's funny you mentioned Africa. They had a fantastic side at our Harmony Nines, our New South Wales Rugby League Harmony Nines that was facilitated at Croom Road here. And they were awesome. They were singing and they were dancing, and they just brought a really good vibe to the whole thing.
Now, we're going to go to a break shortly here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com, and we're going to talk about the clubs in your competition in the Group 7 South Coast competition after the break. But before we go to the break, I want you to be pretending that you're the boss of tourism for the south coast of New South Wales. Tell us about the communities and the beautiful stretch of coast south of Wollongong that make up the Group 7 footprint.
You put me on the spot, but I'll do my best here. I've been around rugby league I've been around the world a couple of times, or maybe more. I've played rugby league in England, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, obviously Australia, over in the UK, all different parts of the country, of the world, sorry. But there's no place like home. There's no place like the South Coast. We've got football ovals that fall onto our beaches. We've got beautiful stretches of sand up and down the Shoalhaven in the Jervis Bay area, down to a place called Milton Ulladulla, up to Warilla, places like Shell Harbour, Kiama, Gerringong, Jamberoo, Berry, Narrabomidary Jets, Milton Ulladulla. We go out to Moss Vale now with the Southern Highland Storm, anywhere and everywhere in between, and one of our most famous clubs, the Abbey Park Oak Flats Eagles. Look, the South Coast of New South Wales, that's the place you want to play rugby league, and I'll welcome you with with open arms.
We're speaking to Ashton Sims, former NRL star who's travelled the world playing the game that we all love. You're listening to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. When we come back, we'll get Ashton to go through each club in the Group 7 competition and talk about their premiership credentials. Stay with us, more to come. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Jason Costigan's my name, and our special guest this week is the operations manager of Group 7 South Coast Rugby League, former NRL star Ashton Sims. Ashton, let's get right into it now. You've got a 9-team first-grade competition this year, and in no particular order, let's go through the clubs. Firstly, the Stingrays, one of two clubs in the great city of Shell Harbour.
Yeah, look, the Stingrays, since their inception at 2014, they had a tough couple of years there. One of their scores was 96-0, a loss against the Abbey Park Flats Eagles. But they've turned into one of our premier clubs and also one of our premier first-grade clubs, led by the captain, Kieran Rankmore. They've also got ex-NRL star Tim Laffey in there, who started the year in blistering form. They've got a few country representatives in Jake Brisbane and Tommy Warner to lead them forward this year as well. So plenty of hype around them, and I think they'll be very good in 25.
Let's talk about the town of Kiama and the mighty Kiama Knights, picturesque home ground, famous Kiama for its iconic blowhole, and always with a pretty fair roster. This year, no exception.
This year's no exceptions. Last year, they had a really tough year. They finished second last, but they've got a new coach in Matty O'Brien and Steve Ross, two former Kiama juniors who are now giving back to the club. Got a couple of outside players, but they're really promoting their juniors, and that's exactly what they want. Sammy Hooper's come to the club. Matty Nicholson's come to the club. Ryan Hodgson's returned from a couple of years at Collies. They look very good.
Let's talk about Shell Harbour, a well-run club, obviously with a big catchment. How are they shaping up?
Two-time runners-up. The last 2 years, they've lost both grand finals against Gerringong, but I'm telling you what, they're gearing themselves up to go one better this year. But led by Jaden Morgan there, who's been in town, who's been for the St George Illawarra Dragons there, one of the front rowers, and also Bryce Magnone, another front rower. So they've probably got one of the best 1-2 punches in the Group 7 in front row, and they'll be looking to do one better than the last 2 years.
Now we go to Albion Park Oak Flats. How are they looking?
Albion Park Oak Flats, very good. They're currently sitting in around 4th. Ex-NRL player Josh White is their coach out there, and he's just brought this team together. A lot compromised the local juniors and a couple from outside there as well, to ensure that they're going to be there and thereabouts at the end of the season.
Okay, we go to Jamboree, home of the Superoos. How are they shaping up?
Yeah, the Superoos are looking very good. They're like Kiama. They had a pretty poor year by their standards, but they've gone out. They've recruited a few from other clubs, but also they got the big bopper Reece Kennedy from the NRL and also over there in the Super League. He's spearheading their forward pack, and they're going to be I think they're going to be a dark horse towards the end of the year.
Now, I don't want anyone ringing up our producer or the station to say there's some bias towards your old club, the Gerringong Lions, but we're coming on to Gerringong now, a club that's got a great history in churning out players. We'll talk about that later, but how are the Lions looking in 2025?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a rebuilding year for the Lions, to be honest. The start of the year, they've had a few wins, they've had a few losses, where the last couple of years they've gone undefeated for at least the first half of the season. So, but the one thing with their coach, Scotty Stewart, is he's a fantastic operator. He's up at the St George Illawarra Dragons as their welfare officer. He knows rugby league inside and out. But the thing is, he knows Gerringong inside and out. And I think they'll get a couple of guys back from injury over the next month or two, and they'll give the competition a good shake.
Now, the southern tip of your footprint, if memory serves me right, those towns of Milton and Ulladulla, one big community club there called the Bulldogs. How are they looking?
Milton Ulladulla Bulldogs, they've started off the season strong. They really have. Led by a few people who remember Andy Lynch from the Castleford Tigers and Hull FC over there. He's the head coach of them, and they've just got a new guy named Ashton Robinson. From the Leeds Academy, who's coming over and playing this year, and he's turned up to be a lively character. So look, they've had a couple of wins, they've had a couple of losses to start the year, but I think with a bit of luck on their side, especially with in and around injury, they'll be okay.
Now, without sugarcoating it, one of the battlers of the competition, Nara Bomaderry, the Jets, some would say that the Jets they're stuck on the tarmac. Are we going to see them going north on the ladder, or is it a bit of a tall order with the roster they've got?
Don't write them off, I'm telling you right now. I wouldn't write off the Nara Bomaderry Jets. So former NRL player Dylan Farrell, he's actually from Culburra. He's from that region down there, and he's the talismanic leader of that side. And, he gets them all up around there. And they had a good win in round 2 against Kiama. To be fair, so they've shown they can mix it with the big guys. It's just about consistency now.
And last but not least, Berry Shoalhaven Heads. The mighty Magpies now a bit slow out of the blocks, but they're on the board. Can they head north on that ladder?
They've chalked their first win up, which is really good. And you know what? They're led by another Englishman, Danny Yates. He played in the League One and Championship over there with the Batley Bulldogs and a few other clubs. He's full of beans, 27 years old, and he's mad as a wasp. But that's what they need down there. They're one of our foundation clubs. The Berry Shoalhaven Heads Magpies are very important to the Group 7, and they had to pull out of first grade last year, but they've come back with a vengeance.
Now, just to sum up, you've got those 9 clubs in first grade, and you probably, I'm going to put you on the spot here, you probably don't want to talk about it too much publicly, but up the road there's a big city called Wollongong. Their competition with only 6 first grade teams. You must be pretty happy with how things have panned out here with that tribalism amongst the towns in Group 7.
Yeah, look, we can only worry about ourselves, and we can only implement strategies, actions, programs, events that are going to look after the Group 7 to ensure that we attain our mission or our goal as being a premier rugby league competition in New South Wales. I think that, we've got our Magic Round coming up in 2025, which is something that we're really excited to do. It's something we haven't done before in first grade. 4 games back-to-back at Artie Smith Oval there at Bomaderry, and we're looking forward to that. There's been a huge lift of enthusiasm and also optimism about that day, and that's just one of the things that we're looking at implementing in 2025 and beyond.
A couple of things I want to talk about is also outside the first grade sphere. You've got clubs like the Southern Highlands Storm, so you're providing an opportunity for clubs outside the top flight across the footprint.
Look, our Regan Cup or third grade competition is very important to us because what it does, it provides rugby league in those smaller communities, those smaller areas. So, places like Sussex Inlet, Culburra, St George's Basin, Robertson, Southern Highlands, that Mossvale area, Mount Warrigal Courees. Mate, we've got rugby league in the whole of the South Coast. And, rugby league has been the heartbeat of winter sports for over the South Coast for the last 114 years. And we want to continue to be that. We want to consolidate what we've got, but also be that competition that aspires to be great.
What about the women's game? I'm sure that's of interest to members of the Sims family especially.
Absolutely.
So what about the local women's game? It's certainly a big growth area for rugby league, is it not?
That's probably our biggest growth area, and it's fantastic to see. We've got girls, playing league tag. We've got girls playing tackle. We've got our numbers are up considerably over the last 3 or 4 years, and that's a big part of that is the female leg of the game. For so long, rugby league's catered to one half of the demographic. But now no longer when Rowan grew up, you've got to play tackle until 12, and then that's it. You've got to find another sport. Not a chance. With Group 7, we've got under 12 girls tackle. We've got under 14 girls tackle. We've got under 16 girls tackle, 18 girls tackle, and we've got open women's tackle competitions. So we need to ensure that we cater to everyone, because at the end of the day, rugby league, it is the greatest game of all, but it is the game that everyone can play.
Now, before we wrap up with Ashton Sims here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com, I'm going to give Ashton a bit of a free rein here to give us a bit of a roll call of some of the players that have come out of the Group 7 competition over the years, because going through, the decades, it's an impressive list and something to be proud of.
Oh, look, I could go on for a long time, but I know we've only got X amount of time here. But, one club we didn't talk about before was the Warilla Gorillas. They're a very proud club. Guys like David Boyle have come from the Warilla Gorillas, and obviously UFC champion Alex Volkanovski. He comes from the Warilla Gorillas as well. So they're fantastic. Albion Park Flats Eagles, you've got guys like Jason Hooper that have come through there. You've also got guys like Drew Hutchinson that's come from Albion Park Flats Eagles there. You go over to the Shell Harbour Sharks, Luke Bailey, Matty Cooper. I know I'm missing a few here. Dan Hunt. You head over to the Stingrays. Jack Bostock has come from the Stingrays there. You go down to Kaima, the Morris boys. Mitch Rain from Kaima there. Then you go to Gerringong, and there's a fair few there. Obviously, you've got Michael Cronin, Rod Wishart, Ron Quinn, Peter Ford, Ruben Garrick. You've got Jack Murchie. You've got Tyron Wishart. There's a whole host of guys there. I'm trying to be quick, I know. And then you go down to Nowra there. There's been so many that come through the Nowra system. Some really good players. Obviously, you've got Dill Farrell there at the moment, and then down to the Milton Ulladulla Bulldogs. Guys like Luke O'Donnell have come from the Milton Milton Ulladulla Bulldogs there, but not only in the men, but also in the females as well. Keely Brown's from the Milton Ulladulla Bulldogs, Tegan Berry's from the Stingrays, Evie McGrath's from the Stingrays there as well. We've got another girl named Indy Bostock who's right on the cusp of making an NRL debut. So, man, woman, child, mate, we're firing on all cylinders here, and I'm in a privileged position to be able to focus on the pathways for the next generation.
Ashton, love the passion. It's quite obvious and quite evident for us to observe. We wish you well. Great roll call and great work with Group 7. All the best for the rest of season 25.
Much appreciated. Thanks, Jace.
There he is, Ashton Sims, the Operations Manager of Group 7 Rugby League on the south coast of New South Wales. A quick break, back with more right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. I'm Jason Costigan. Nice to have your company. Time now to focus on Queensland. Let's start with the far north of the Sunshine State. And last weekend, Cairns Brothers 38, Tully Tigers 18, Mossman Port Douglas Sharks 12, Suburbs 14. And in the match at Vico Oval, where they saluted the late Alan Gill, the local legend and former Australian player, Kangaroos 32, Mariba 44. In the Sunday fixtures, Innisfail Leprechauns 52, Yarrabah 30, and Atherton 29, Ivanhoe's 22. Looking ahead to round 9, on Saturday at 6 o'clock, we've got Suburbs and Roos at Alley Park, and at the same time, Ivanhoe's play Innisfail Leprechauns at Smithfield. And up on the tablelands at Davies Park, it's Mariba v Cairns Brothers. On Sunday, Edmonton host Atherton as Tully welcome Yarrabah. Those games to kick off at 3 o'clock. In Townsville last weekend, Souths hammered Norths 34 points to 8, Burdekin 38, Western Lions 14. Brothers edged out Herbert River 28-24, and Centrals won 12-0 at Charters Towers. This coming weekend on Saturday, the River make the trip to the Towers for a 4:30pm kickoff. Then at 6:30, we've got Norths hosting Western Lions. And on Sunday down in the Burdekin, it's the Roosters and Centrals, that game starting at 3:30. To Mackay, last weekend no fixtures were played, so let's focus what's happening on this weekend. In fact, on Saturday from 3 o'clock, Souths play Wests at Shark Park. Then at 6:30pm at the southern end of Milton Street, we've got Brothers and old rivals Magpies. And then on Sunday, in the battle for the wooden spoon, I dare say, down at Serena, it's the Crocs and the Brahmins. To Kalkadoon country in the northwest and Mount Isa. And for the first time this season, last Friday night under lights, Wanderers beat Townies 40 points to 16. And I reckon the Townies coach, former Queensland Origin hero Johnny Doyle, would not have been too impressed at all. In the Central West, last Saturday night, Barcaldine won 18-14 at Alpha as Blackall walloped Winton 62 points to 8. And this Saturday in round 10, we've got the Magpies off to Barkey as the Tigers host the Brumbies. Kick-off for both is at 6 o'clock. And by the way, that home game for the Tigers is at Ilfracombe, with the old boys taking centre stage. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of amber fluid consumed later at the well shot. Now, last Friday night in the Central Highlands and Coalfields, Springshaw beat the visiting Tigers 40 points to 16 as Claremont collected the 2 points on the road, beating Peak Downs Pirates 50 points to 24. And on Saturday in that big local derby at Blackwater in the coal capital, Bluff Rabbitohs defeated the Crushers 22 points to 14, whilst over at Norm Blanche Oval in Middlemount, Brothers beat the Panthers 26 points to 10. This Saturday, we've got Tigers v Brothers, Bluff at Springshaw and Middlemount at Blackwater. 7pm kickoff for all those games. In Rockhampton last weekend at Vic Park, Rocky Brothers 26, Yeppoon 14. At Dennis Park, Gladstone Brothers beat Tannum Sands 10-0. In the Sunday afternoon game on the Capricorn Coast, Emu Park toppled Norths 36-20. And in Rocky, Fitzroy's got smashed again, this time by Valleys, the Diehards winning 52-0. Now we go to the Northern Districts competition, and last weekend Calliope outclassed Gin Gin 36 points to 10. Isis Devils beat Avondale 28-4, and South Callan Sharks gave the Miriam Vale Magpies a 36-4 drubbing. Now, this weekend, the focus is on the Discovery Coast. They're the host venue this weekend, in fact, for the 3 matches. First up, we've got Avondale v South Callan. That's from 10:20. From 12 o'clock, it's Miriam Vale versus Gin Gin. And then the main game from 3 o'clock, Marlins v Calliope. In Bundaberg last weekend, East 44, Roos 28, Waves 32, West 4. And Seagulls won their match against Brothers 44-18. This weekend in the Rum Capital, we've got Panthers v Magpies from 3:45 at Salter. followed by the game between Brothers and Waves at 5:30, and in Maryborough, it's Roos v Harvey Bay from 5 o'clock. To the Central Burnett, last weekend gained a too good for Mundubbera, 26-14, and in the main game, Binghamton shot down the Eidsvold Eagles 50 points to 4. This Saturday, all roads lead to Eidsvold. First up, we've got Monto v Binghamton from 3 o'clock, and then from 5 o'clock, it's the Eagles hosting Mundubbera. In the neighbouring South Burnett, last weekend, Cherbourg was the place to be. Mergen 34, Wondai 26, and Hornets 46, Kingaroy 22. This Saturday, the action is at Wondai. We've got Cherbourg up against Wondai, followed by the Red Ants playing the Mustangs. To the Sunshine Coast now, and last weekend, Nambour 10, Stanley River 40, Coolum 18, Maroochydore 8, Caboolture 20, Noosa 28, and Kawana 50, Caloundra 18. Now this weekend on the sunny coast, we've got the Dogs at Nambour, Noosa v Coolum, Caloundra at Caboolture, and Kawana hosting the Swannies. To Ipswich, last weekend, West End 14, Jets 34, Redbank Plains 32, Brothers 6, Fassifern 26, Norths 18. This Saturday, 2 6 o'clock matches, Brothers v Bombers and Norths v West End, and on Sunday at 11:50 in the morning at the North Ipswich Reserve, it's the Jets versus Redbank Plains. Now to Toowoomba, and last weekend Brothers 16, Dalby 22, Wattles 38, Gundawindi 16, Gatton 54, Highfields no score, Oakey 32, Warwick Cowboys 34, and Valleys 28, Pittsworth 26. Coming up on Saturday, we've got Highfields v Gundawindi and Valleys hosting Oakey, and then on Sunday, Gatton at Warwick, Brothers on the road to Pittsworth, and Wattles v Souths at Platts Oval. To the Roma competition, last weekend Mitchell belted Jandowie 44-4, Miles won 28-24 at Surat, Chinchilla 32-6 over Visiting Cities, and at Wandoan the Battlers 34-28 over St George. This coming Friday night, we've got Miles hosting the Battlers. Cities play the Fishhooks at Jandowie before Chinchilla face the Red Bulls at Wallumbilla. Those matches on Saturday, and on Sunday it's St George hosting Mitchell. In the Border Rugby League, just the one match, Tenterfield 24, Inglewood 30, and this Saturday the Roosters from Inglewood, they host the Gremlins from Stanthorpe from 2 o'clock. Finally, to the glitter strip, that is the Gold Coast. Runaway Bay 12, Tugun 30, Southport 10, Currumbin 62, and Helensvale 14, Burleigh 46. Now, this Saturday from 3 o'clock, we've got Tugun v Currumbin. Then at 7 o'clock under lights, Runaway Bay versus Helensvale. And on Sunday afternoon, the action concludes with Burleigh hosting Southport. That is the Sunshine State done and dusted. When we come back, we'll quickly crisscross the continent and wrap it all up here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat. Now, we're almost out of time, regrettably, so for this week, for the other states and territories, I'll just whiz through the results from last weekend. First up, Metro Victoria's Storm Premiership. Altona beat Sunshine because the Cowboys forfeited. Thunderbolts belted the Bunnies 72 points to 4, and Northern Thunder won 36-10 at Casey. Staying in Vic in the Goulburn Murray Storm Premiership, Tumbarumba beat Shepparton 30 points to 20, Wodonga 22-8 over the Wolfpack, and Wangaratta 32-30 victors against the Border Bears. In South Australia, in the suburbs of Adelaide, Eels 38 beat Souths 12, and Black Swans 66-16 winners over Adelaide Plains in the Barossa. The Roosters won their match against the Warriors because the Warriors, sadly, were a no-show. Over in the West, in the Fuel to Go and Play Premiership, Joondalup beat Rockingham 16-12. Willagee defeated South Perth 20 points to 8, and two-time defending champions North Beach on the road beat Freo in a close one, 22 points to 20. And finally, to the top end in the Dabsco Premiership, Brothers beat Sharks 52-14, Litchfield steamrolled Nightcliff 44-12, and Palmerston romped home against South Darwin, the Raiders 56-16 victors in that one. That concludes this episode of Bushbeat. Thanks again to Ashton Sims for joining us here from Kiama on the beautiful south coast of New South Wales. Thanks also to Steve Mascord for getting us on air as always. For now, this is Costo signing off. The news is next here on rugbyleague.com.